What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Roll. And today, I wanted to talk to you about the game that came out 2 months ago. Oblivion Remastered, baby. Let's go. Oblivion is a fantastic game. I love the Elder Scrolls, and Oblivion, I actually played Skyrim before Oblivion, and I think Oblivion is a better game overall than Skyrim, but it also has its problems. And today, I wanted to talk about what we can take from Oblivion and put into Dungeons and Dragons, and what we can learn from Oblivion and not put into Dungeons and Dragons. So, here we go. First things first, leveling up. So, in Oblivion, you have to level up by resting or sleeping, whether that's in a bed by a dungeon or a bed in a tavern. Doesn't matter where you sleep or rest, you just have to sleep or rest in order to level up. I actually like it because it gives you a reason to actually use a bed in the game. I know Skyrim kind of did by giving you a buff, but for me, it was never really like a big thing to have to do. I guess it's either Skyrim was easy enough that you could do it without the buff, or the buff just wasn't good enough to want to do. So either way, take that as you will. So for me, resting before leveling up kind of makes sense for D&D as well, I think, because in D&D currently, it's just kind of, oh hey, you guys have the correct amount of XP, you guys hit a milestone, level up now, and that's about that. No matter where you're at, you just level up. And you can make the argument for milestone like, oh yeah, just make it so that they have to sleep before they hit, level up in the milestone. I play by XP. There's a few reasons for that, and maybe I'll make a video on that later on. But I do play by XP, and as far as XP goes, it does kind of make it weird whenever you're in the middle of a dungeon and you're just like, oh yeah, you guys level up now. So it is kind of strange. So I think a good way to do it would be to require your players to find a resting spot for a long rest before you level up. And it kind of makes for a smooth transition as well, because if you work out, you know that the biggest period of time for your body to rebuild itself is during sleep. And, you'll wake up the next day after working out very sore, but over time your body will rebuild those muscles that you damaged working out. And it just makes sense that you go to bed after a massive fight and you wake up stronger. And you can even restrict the bed system to certain areas. I know in Oblivion, like, they usually put beds outside of the dungeons or even in the dungeons sometimes, which is a little egregious to me personally, but I can see scenarios that you could feasibly come up with where your players are like, okay, I want to barricade this and rest in this dungeon room. So stuff like that, allow your players to be able to rest to level up, even if they're in the middle of a dungeon, or if they want to come out of the dungeon and go back in the dungeon later, and sleep outside the dungeon. Because, let's be honest, who wants to walk all the way back to town just to sleep and then come all the way back to the dungeon? Depending on the distance, obviously. But, some dungeons can be like miles away, hundreds of miles away, tens of miles away, doesn't really matter. Keeping the bed or keeping your rests close by to the dungeon allows for more fun to be had. Something to think about. And obviously you can make it a little bit more dangerous, but still allow them to be able to get the rests in. And yeah. So the next thing I wanted to look at, repair system. That's a thing that maybe we should look at as well. I do have a small system for this. This isn't anything crazy by any means of the imagination. I just wanted to come up with an example as to what it could look like and how it could be worked on. So there is no repair system in D&D, as you may know right now. But we can add it very easily, in fact. It's as simple as tracking hits that you make and that the enemies make upon you. It's very simple, really. So my system is every 10 hits that you make, right? Every successful 10 hits decreases your attack and damage rolls by -1. Kind of makes sense to me. And you can do it up to a certain amount, or you can just keep doing it for infinity up until they start only doing 1 damage with their weapon. And it gives them a reason to switch to another weapon. Yeah, because I know a lot of D&D characters usually have a secondary weapon that they have in their inventory that never gets pulled out. Never. And it's very sad because that weapon is brand spanking new and the other weapon's like rusty and bloody and hasn't seen water in 3 days. So no, I mean, it's not a big deal, but being able to, see that progression of the degradation in your weapon makes you want to pull out the other weapon and start using it. Even if you don't have proficiency in it, it gives you a reason to pull out that other weapon, because even that other weapon may be better than a -5 to your attack and damage, So just something to look at. Same thing goes with armor. So every 10 hits you take can decrease your armor's AC by -1. And, I mean, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's a really big, it is a big thing to have your armor decreased by -1. But I would argue that would be why, either spare armor or having someone with spare armor would be really good, or having the ability to repair your armor, it just makes it more valuable, And talking about repairing your armor, I think you should allow a consumable resource to be bought in order for your players to repair their armor based on an ability check. And on the same side, so in Oblivion, you have to repair your armor multiple times in one go. It's not just a one click and it's repaired. It's a increment system where, like, your armor's at 17, you can repair it plus 13, plus 13, plus 13, up until 100, or if you're above, or if you're at level 100 in smithing, then you can go above that, right? I think you should allow your players to do that. I think in D&D, it would be better for just one roll to repair a weapon or piece of armor all the way. Because I think, just the speed of things in D&D is obviously a lot slower than most video games. So in order to not, take forever doing something, I think it would just be better just for the one roll. But that's completely up to you and your party and how you guys like playing the game. I also think you should allow, if the ability check fails, the consumable resource breaks and it's not repaired. It's just as simple as that. And yeah, that's my wear and tear system. That's how I would go about doing degradation in equipment and how to repair them. And if you have any, comments on it, be sure to let me know in the comment section, because I would love to see what you guys think. But moving on to the next thing is NPCs. So, you ever play Oblivion and realize NPCs aren't really bountiful in that game? You can be in the Imperial City, look around and go, this place is a ghost town, huh? Yeah, I do that every day. So, here's the thing about NPCs in Oblivion. There aren't a lot of them. But for those that are there, you remember every single one of them, for the most part. I will say, Skingrad has forever scarred me. All the NPCs in Skingrad are some of the weirdest NPCs in Oblivion, and I'm so here for it, but it is kind of crazy how weird those NPCs can be. If you ever talk to the alchemists in Skingrad, if you know, you know. Anyways, so yeah, you don't. So basically, I got so off track right there. So NPCs in Oblivion, you kind of get to know them really well throughout your adventure, and I think we should take that and put it into D&D. Not every NPC needs to be, a huge thing. Obviously, you can have just, background NPCs for like filling up a city, but not all of them need to be able to be talked to. You only need like probably 10 or 12 NPCs in every city for your players to talk to in order for them to actually get a feel for what the city is and how it's, ran and their culture and stuff like that. Obviously, background NPCs can have like a couple lines of dialogue that you can come up with. And obviously, just to make it seem less like a video game, you can come up with their personalities on the fly. But basically what I'm saying is it's not worth it to just take every single NPC into account and write them before you start your game, because you're gonna wear yourself out doing that, and you're also gonna go crazy whenever your players don't talk to everybody. And that's not coming from experience. I generally don't plan out my dude, I actually don't plan out my NPCs too much at all. Even the 10 or 12 that I would consider to be crucial NPCs that your players could talk to, I maybe think about 1 or 2, and that's about it. The others I just come up with on the fly and see what rolls. So yeah, those NPCs that you come up with, by the way, should be able to offer services to your players, because, okay, not all of them, but most of them should be able to offer services, and it doesn't just have to be selling equipment and buying equipment. They can also train your players. Oblivion has a really cool system, and to be fair, most Elder Scrolls games do. You can train by paying an NPC. I think that's awesome. You should do that in your game because it gives your players even more reason to spend gold, and that's always a good thing because we know D&D players love hoarding their gold. We know that they're too rich. We need to spread out the wealth. So yeah, I think training should be a thing in D&D. It's kind of sad that there is no system for it. But, this is why we can come up with our own. So you want to know what Oblivion's really bad at? Level scaling. There's a moment in Oblivion whenever you're only fighting rats and lower level goblins. And then whenever you get to like level 5 or level 10, it becomes bandits, you're fighting bears, timber wolves, stuff like that. Basically, Oblivion introduces new enemies based on your level. The only thing that is a kind of a problem is that the lower level enemies just kind of wither away and disappear, right? And on the same side, bandits also get armor and weapons worth thousands upon thousands of gold, and I'm not saying that bandits aren't capable of doing that. I'm sure, a few of them are. But every single bandit in Oblivion turns into a mini boss. So don't do that. So what I'm basically saying is don't stop throwing lower level monsters at your players, because it kind of takes away the progression part of D&D. It's fun to see your character be able to go from, oh, I just killed an orc in 10 hits to I just killed an orc in 2 hits. You're just able to cut them down and just mow them down. Cannon fodder's fun. Cannon fodder is fun. On the other side of that coin, give your lower level players higher level monsters to fight, because again, the progression of going from I just killed, or well, not even killed, we just ran away from some massive monster because it was absolutely annihilating us, to now I'm level 8 and I'm able to actually go toe to toe with it. I think that's a really cool way to have your players feel like they're actually progressing in their adventures. The last point I wanted to get to for Oblivion was its story. Oblivion is a great example of how to create a story that your players take part of and are a big part of, but they are not the main characters. For example, Martin Septim is basically the main character of Oblivion, being the next in line to take over the Emperor's throne. And I'm not gonna spoil I'm not gonna spoil a 20-year-old game, but if you know what happens at the end. However, I will say, your players not being the main characters of the story and instead feeling like not a small part, but a side part of a bigger conflict, it may bore them just a little bit, purely because some people want that power fantasy of being the main character. And if that's the case, you need to establish that with them before you start playing. I think Session Zeros would be great for that kind of establishment. Make sure that your players know if they are the main characters or if they are going to be part of a bigger conflict. I think most games probably end up with the players as the main characters. So if you're going to go that route, I would say Skyrim is a better example to look at for that kind of story, because Skyrim, you probably already know, the Dragonborn is obviously the main character. He is obviously supremely powerful, and he could obviously just wipe out, whatever forces he wanted to go against, fairly easily, I think. So, Oblivion players are a kind of like a main. Players take part in a bigger conflict, and Skyrim, the players are the main characters in that conflict. Yeah, that makes sense. So, alright. I think I actually kind of got my points out better than I have in all the previous recordings that I made for this video. It's been a long video to make. I've been trying to kind of like actually get my words out, and it's hard for me to do that. I don't know why. I think it's just this kind of video I've never done before, and I'm just trying to see how it could work. But anyways, people, let me know what you think down in the comments. I think I have some interesting points in here. I think it'd be interesting to have a little bit of conversation about it. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's roll.